this loser as attributed to a flawed process in itself. Because if we have a flawed process, then that in itself will call to question the final outcome of the results. So really, when we have someone who has lost, this person who has lost must have the confidence that he has lost fairly. And people who have won, even the losers must know that this person has also won legitimately. Because legitimacy is also at the heart of the question whether someone has lost fairly or not, or whether we have someone who has also won fairly. Yes.
Very well. Thank you very much indeed for responding to those questions. But I'm sure these are some of the issues that you are discussing here as we wait for the verdict from the Supreme Court judges. Well, thank you very much indeed for finding time, of course, to be with us and continue watching these broadcasts. Of course, we have Victor Olo as well as and Joey, who are in studio with us this morning, and a team of experts who are helping us analyze these issues. And of course, remember, our teams are also on the ground at the Supreme Court of Kenya, at the Milimani Law Court, and in Uasin Gishu, in Nyeri, in Kirinyaga, in Kisumu, Mombasa, as well as various parts of the capital, just monitoring the situation on the ground. My name is O'Brien Keman. We'll keep on interacting throughout the day. Enjoy, and back to you, John, Mr. Njoe.
Indeed, and allow me to take it from where you had started it, where the roads that are closed today. So if you haven't left your house, kindly, the road shall be closed after they get the directive from the Supreme Court. But when we were coming to work, we saw police lining up. So this is what is going to happen. Ngong Road will be closed at the junction of Ngong Road, First Avenue, opposite NHIF. No motorist will be allowed to access CBD through Kenyatta Avenue via Cathedral Road, but instead are advised to use Haile Selassie Avenue. Secondly, Cathedral Road, Milimani Ngong Road, which accesses Milimani Law Courts, will be closed at the Kenyatta Avenue Valley Road junction at the NSSF. And only vehicles heading to the court will be allowed. Only other motorists are advised to use Valley Road. Cathedral Road, Haile Selassie Avenue Junction will be closed, and motorists are advised to use alternative route of Haile Selassie Ngong Road. That it was a communique by the Kenya Police Service yesterday in regards to the Milimani Law Court. So if you have no business there, they say just follow it up at home or in your office. Thank you so much, O'Brien. 9 pertinent issues that were filtered by the Apex Court for determination. That is exactly what we are waiting for. The Apex Court say they're going to give a notice on judgment. They haven't given that notice yet, so that we may know exactly what is happening. But as Brian had alluded to earlier, is that we also have our crew that is on the ground. We'll be getting back to them to know exactly, or to have a feel of how things are. Yesterday, the clarion call by both parties, Raila Odinga and also from the President-elect Brigade, William Ruto, talked about let's maintain peace. Let's maintain peace and wait for the Apex Court judges to make a determination on the same. Something else that, gentlemen, that happened, and of course is gonna be adding into their judgment today, was the recounting, the verifying, and the rescrutiny of 41 boxes from 15 polling stations. And the report that was presented to the court on Friday did unearth that there were some malpractices or irregularities. We even heard that some were not stamped, some 34A were not stamped, and others. How much is too much when it comes to that report? How much is too much? Irregularities that were unearthed. How much is too much? Perhaps I can get that from you, Wambui.
Well, the jurisprudence in this country is that we do not have a flawless election, so that we will always have an election process that is going to be characterized by some errors. I mean, you are having a perfect system which is being implemented by imperfect people, because we are human beings and we are imperfect, then the final outcome of this process is not essentially going to be a very perfect process. So that the courts have always told us that regardless of the small errors that you will find or you will see here and there, that in itself does not necessarily mean that we are going to invalidate an election because of those small errors here and there. But be that as it may, there must be, the people who bear the burden, because it is the IEBC that bear the evidential burden, they must tell us also that to what extent really were these errors being committed? Was it a deliberate pattern? Because you will find in some areas, I'm handling some constitutional petitions, during that touch on this election, and I will tell you that there are some deliberate mistakes that are made so that they can achieve a certain outcome. Now you find probably the subtraction of some votes from a candidate, and some of these elections that we have been having, be it the county elections or the national elections, where we have the difference in votes probably not exceeding 1,000 or 2,000, then you will establish that a deliberate difference of about five votes from every polling station. When someone's votes are being subtracted from every polling station, then this is likely to affect the outcome of the whole election. But you see, you must demonstrate as the petitioner, because if you are alleging a fact in court, and this is what the law is all about, that if you are alleging that someone has done something and he has done it deliberately, so that the errors that we are seeing should be seen as deliberate, then the person who is alleging this, the burden is on him to prove that indeed some of these errors are actually deliberate and they are calculated to achieve a certain outcome. So to that extent, then I think the court will properly or will be in order to nullify the elections. So really, when we speak about errors in an election, it is not a yes or no that you see, the response to which is going to lead to the nullification of the election. No, it is something that it is a dicey situation. There must be proof that goes beyond the demonstration of those errors. Yes,
and of course we can't re-emphasize the fact that we always want to have a free, fair, verifiable and credible election. But before we look at how to strengthen the belief in our electoral system, Vicky, on your side?
Yeah, the discussion is still happening, and we have just started yet, right? But for now, let's cross over to Kipnusu himself in Eldoret. Kipnusu, good morning. Yamunevoyo. What's happening from Eldoret?
A very good morning to you, Ben Troinjue and Victor Olo there at the Broadcasting House. Yes, coming to you live from Uasin Gishu County. This is the political bedrock of the President-elect and the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, William Samoei Arap Ruto. And this being a big day, Kenyans or residents here, the ones I've managed to interview, have talked to, they're actually waiting with bated breath the verdict from the 7-judge bench in regards to the presidential petition that was filed by the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya presidential candidate Raila Odinga. Remember that the number of seats was copped by the United Democratic Alliance, the party of William Samoei Arap Ruto, ranging from the governor, senator, woman member to the National Assembly, and the 6 members of the National Assembly, that is 6 constituencies. And just to paint a picture of the expectations as we await that ruling or verdict from the 7-judge bench, I'm joined by a number of residents here to tell us what they expect. Asante sana kujiunga nasi. Unaitwa nani? Pengine kuja karibu hapa, unaitwa nani na pengine unatarajia nini wakati majaji watakapokuwa wanatoa uamuzi wao kuhusiana na kesi ya rufaa ya uchaguzi?
Asante sana. Kwa majina naitwa Frederick Koge. Mimi ni mkazi wa Uasin Gishu, na siku ya leo tuko tunangoja sana yule atakayetangazwa kama president wetu. Tutafurahia sana, na pia mimi naomba viongozi wetu atakayetangazwa huyo ndio wetu. Iwe Raila ni wetu, ni Mkenya. Iwe Ruto ni wetu, ni Mkenya. Sasa sisi kama Uasin Gishu huku hapa ni bedroom ya William Samoei Ruto, na tunaomba ikuwe ni yeye, na tunatarajia akitangazwa ni sherehe, tutapiga sherehe hadi tutaenda hadi Sugoi. Na hapo tunaambia Mungu asante pia wakiamua watarudia kura, hatutakataa. Lazima tuende tukupige kura, na wale wenye hawakupiga kura ile wakati tuende tupige kura, because wenye hawakupiga kura ile wakati wangepiga, hii maneno haingekuwa. So lazima kila mtu ajitokeze aende apige kura kama wataamua hivyo.
Asante. Pengine nipate maoni ya mwingine. Njoo tu hapa, unaitwa nani? Pengine wewe ulipiga kura na pengine unaona kuhusiana tuna majaji hawa wanapoendesha uamuzi wao, wewe matarajio yako ni yapi?
Kwa majina ni Ezekiel Koros, mkaaji wa Uasin Gishu County, na ningependa kusema ya kwamba majaji hao ambao wameweza kuteuliwa wafanye kazi katika koti kuu, ningependa ya kwamba waweze kufanya hiyo judgment in a good way, na waweze kuonesha ya kwamba hii Kenya si ya mtu mmoja ama si ya nani. Na sisi watu kama Uasin Gishu tunapenda kusikia ama tunafurahia kusikia kwamba William Ruto ambaye ni mtoto wa nyumbani hapa Uasin Gishu ametangazwa kuwa president, kwa sababu aliweza kutangazwa kuwa president elect, na tungeomba akuwe president wa Kenya. Na si watu kama Uasin Gishu tumechoka ama tunataka kufanya kazi, tunataka mtu kama president atufanyie kazi, na tungependa kuona hata wakisema tuende rerun tutafanya hivyo, kwa sababu tunajua ya kwamba sisi tulipiga kura na bado tutapiga kura, hatutachoka, tutaendelea hivyo.
Asante. Pengine nipate mmoja tu ambaye pengine anaweza kutoa maoni yake. Karibu hapa kaka, uweze kutoa maoni yako. Karibu, naona umevalia jezi ya UDA, inaashiria kwamba karibu tu hapa, usiogope. Toa maoni yako kuhusiana na majaji hawa watakapotoa uamuzi wao, pengine matarajio yako ni yapi, na pengine ikiwa wataweza kusema kwamba twende kwenye uchaguzi, je, utashiriki?
Asante kabisa. Jina langu ni Samuel Biwat, mkaji wa Uasin Gishu. Kwa majaji hawa tunatarajia waamue, watupe kiongozi mwenye tulimchagua. Kwa hivyo hapa ni Uasin Gishu kwa kina Daktari Samoei William Ruto, ambapo wakati wa Uasin Gishu tunatarajia machache watangaze William Samoei Ruto, na kama si hivyo wakitangaza pia warudia kura, tuko tayari kabisa, tunatokeza kwa wingi tupige kura tena. Kwa sasa ni hayo tu ndio wakaaji wa Uasin Gishu tunatarajia sisi wote tusherekee hapo baadaye kama wametangaza Dr. William Samoei Ruto the 5th.
Asante. There you have it, Njue and Olo. A number of residents are actually exuding confidence that their own son, William Samoei Ruto, will be, his win will be, of course, the court or the 7-judge bench will uphold his win when they will make their verdict today. And bearing in mind also, a number of them, they are saying they are tired waiting. Of course, they actually participated in the electoral process, and what they are waiting for is to go back to business and continue with their day-to-day activities. And also, a number of them are saying that if it is Raila or Ruto, well and good. The most important thing is to ensure that the economy has been stabilized and they continue with their day-to-day activities. And of course, from here we are heading to Sugoi. They are telling us that if they will actually uphold the win of William Samoei Ruto, celebrations will be in Bingchao in this particular county. A number of them, of course, are having confidence that William Ruto will be given an okay with that 7-judge bench. From me, Timothy Kipnusu, I hand you back to studio, Bento Njue and Victor Law.
Kipnusu there, although from Uasin Gishu County, that is in Eldoret town, giving us a feel on what the residents there are expecting based on what is going to be the outcome of the Supreme Court ruling that is slated later in the day. Remember, Chief Justice Martha Koome said that the day ends at 12 midnight. So I think she was just being smart on that so that we don't keep a lot of expectation. But of course, that notification will come later on that event, at what particular point it will happen. Yes.
There was someone there who talked about a lot of people didn't vote, and he said, if at all we are going back to the ballot, people should come out and vote. And it's a pertinent question, because looking at the statistics and the audit report by KPMG talked about 22.1 million registered voters. Only 14 million Kenyans voted. That gives you about 8 million Kenyans who didn't go to the ballot for one reason or another. Just trying to underscore how voter turnout affected the outcome of this election. And perhaps to say what he exactly said is that if at all people did go out and voted, maybe we wouldn't have been at the Supreme Court. Perhaps we can engage Maina on the same.
I really don't think the lack of these people to turn up, the 5 million people, is it 5?
Almost 7 million.
Actually, it's 8. The 8 million people who didn't turn up to vote, really would have changed the matrix in regards to people going to Supreme Court or not. The question at the Supreme Court is not really the issue of the turnout per se, but really the outcome and also the process of how the things were. That is the most critical issue that is at the Supreme Court. But be that as it may, the fact that 8 million people didn't turn out to vote actually behoves on the next president, or the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya, that none of the 2 presidential candidates was able to be over the 8 million mark that didn't turn out to vote. And that actually underpins the level of dissatisfaction of the Kenyan Republic in the current systems of our governance. And it is a huge responsibility that the 5th president is going to carry, that there is a level of distrust amongst the people. There is a level of indifference amongst the people in regards to the conduct of our governance and leadership system in our country. So the next president has really to build that level of public confidence and trust in the governance system and the processes that we have as a country. The issue that is at Supreme Court, as I also want to say, is that it's about the outcome, the process. Did it attain the Article 138 of the transparency and the free and the verifiable process that is envisaged in our Constitution? That is the big question in the Supreme Court. And I think and I believe that we have seasoned judges. We have a seasoned Supreme Court that is going to deliver a verdict that is going to really move our country forward. I want to underpin this, that the verdict that is going to be delivered today is final and binding, and it is going to offer direction that our country is going to take moving forward.
All right. Okay. Before we continue there, there was so many, actually 9 key areas that the Supreme Court should be tackling.
Yes.
Looking at in making their judgment today.
Yes.
One of them is whether the technology deployed by IBC in the elections met the standards of integrity, verifiability, security, and transparency to guarantee accurate and verifiable results. Now, this one goes back to the issue of process, the system. But then when you look at the system, the same system was also an issue of concern in 2017.
Yes.
So, are we getting it right, or should we go back to the old system that we used to do without the system?
You see, Victor, and I've said here in a previous interview we were with Enjoy, and I said that honestly, on our 21st century, we cannot be conducting the business of 20th and 19th century way of voting. We need to adopt, we need to embrace technology,
and make it better.
And make it better. To a large extent, this election was manual. The transmission was, actually the voting, the registration of voters was manual. The voting was manual. The transmission was also manual. The announcement of election and declaration was manual. We are yet to adopt, or we are yet to embrace technology in our electoral system. And that's why maybe we are having challenges. To a large extent, the only place that you could find technology in this election was the posting of the results on the IBC portal, and maybe the returning officers or the presiding officers sending these particular copies in pictorial form to the ranking officials within the system. But to a large extent, this election was manual. And let me say, the difficulty with the manual, or the challenges with manual, is that you'll always have challenges in terms of the confidence of the verifiability and the transparency of the system. So, and we also need to remember that the fact that the election was manual means that the human resource was largely involved in the election. So I think these are some of the challenges that are going to be addressed in the Supreme Court, and we are going to find more recommendations that are going to improve our electoral system from a technological point of view. I've been advocating for embracing technology right from the registration of voters level. Because if the registration of voters level, we have to go to our polling station or to the IBC offices to be registered as voters, then it means even the process itself in terms of voting, it will be manual. And I've been asking myself, and I've been asking this, Victor, today if I want to send you credit, or if I want to send you money on your M-Pesa, ukiwa northeastern ama ukiwa huko Mombasa, na mimi nikiwa hapa Nairobi, you have that confidence in me that I'm going to take your number, put it on my M-Pesa, and send you the amount of money that we had agreed upon, or that I want to send you.
And if it's 200, it will come 200.
It will come 200. If there is that level of trust in our technology in terms of sending money, why can't we have
embracing it in terms of
voting or election? Why can't we trust that if I'm going to cast my vote technologically in my constituency of Thika, that particular vote is going to reflect in the National Tallying Center? That is the kind of trust, that is the kind of confidence that we need to have in technology, and that is what we should be adopting going into the future.
Okay.
Yes.
That would be a good point to just bend. I think that would be a good point to. Because it's a discussion that we've had here over and over again in terms of embracing technology and deploying, because a lot of even politicians or even guests we've had in studios usually say that the example of M-Pesa, why are we making it so complicated that at the end of the day it becomes expensive, so to speak, but then the results will be, as supposed to not to be.
And Vicky, this is something that I'll take you back to the year 2010. After we promulgated our constitution, the electoral process was supposed to be fully digital. You know? And allow me to disagree with Maina a bit. I would really not call it manual, but I will call it hybrid, because from identification, at least we saw that was digital and the transmission was digital. But the voting itself, I do agree with Maina that it is indeed manual. This is something that also came up, and the one who did submit this was none other than the Busia elect, Okia Omtata, who is also an activist, and said that the issues that we are having are largely because of how we vote, indeed, and the process itself being more or less like a hybrid system. And he raised this on two issues. One, we do not have a digital footprint. So as we are following it up to know exactly the truth of where everything lied to when we did the election, there's also the question of the presidential petition. He said, if at all we had a digital election, 14 days are more than sufficient to conclude this petition. But unfortunately, we are still 10 years after we started using the new constitution. We're still doing everything manual, and this not only because of the cost, as Maina has talked about, is that we do not have any footprints that we can follow up to know exactly where we did go wrong. And allow me now to bring in a constitutional lawyer. Thanks so much indeed for making time, Gibson Gisore. We have been analyzing since when we started these elections and up to now. The digital footprint is the one that we're talking about, and you saw the submissions by Okia Omtata talking about we could have at least reduced a lot of the issues if we embraced a constitution which envisaged that we should be only on digital platform when it comes to matters election.
Thank you, Bentro, and thank you for inviting me. Indeed, today is the day. We have to say that we have to know what is it for us as Kenyans. And I say as Kenyans deliberately because people tend to assume that it's about the two people who are fighting it out in court. It's not about them. It's about Kenyans. Because at the end of the day, it's strengthening our democracy and trying to decide which way do we go from here. Remember, 2027 is around the corner. We will be politicking during this process, and we might be back to this particular quarter again. So it's important that we be able to sit it out and be able to decide which way we want our democracy to be run. So on the question you've asked is very important in that we envisaged a situation whereby we needed to have an electronic process. But at the end of the day, we did get that. As to who to blame, the question is out there. The IBC has been pointed out, whether they delivered a credible election in terms of technology. And that's where technology was one of the big issues as submitted by Kiyo Tata's petition. We did see a situation whereby we didn't have that technology being deployed in the manner in which it was anticipated to have been deployed. So we need to ask ourselves whether which way we want to go. It's very important to actually put demarcations. The technology we wanted to have is one which could be able to provide for verifiability, which is very key, and then be able to provide for security and be able to provide for integrity, and is also able to provide transparency. To some extent, we saw something which the IBC tried to do by displaying the uploading of Form 34 is, but that cannot be able to satisfy the test of what it is that we wanted to have. At the end of the day, you have seen what happened in court, and there were a lot of problems. These are the problems we need to look at and be able to decide how do we move next. Are we going to be having a free electronic process? Is it one which is going to be fully encompassed where we have a database? Because there is an issue of the Smartmatic people. And this question did come by, I remember us discussing it, the questions which were posed to the commissioners before elections. How do you contract Smartmatic people? And then it has proved that they can't even obey our own orders. You know, that is quite dangerous, and they're actually playing to the fact that there are people who have patents and who have rights over our own data that more even more than us. Yeah. That is quite interesting, and we need to ask ourselves whether is this the way we want to go around the elections time. We need to be giving our sovereignty to other people, and then when we demand accountability, they say, you guys, sorry, provided you contracted us, you have no rights here. You know, that's very bad. That's very sad.
Wakili, unfortunately, is that I'm quite sure these are not laws that Smartmatic has decided now, because you are challenging the election and we are the ones who offer the server and the IT technology. Then we are not going to do that. I'm quite sure it was in the blueprint before the IEBC signed on the dotted line.
I cannot authoritatively say that it was in the blueprint because I didn't see the contract. It's only IEBC which can tell us, and if they tell us, they could actually explain further why they could have such a contract, given that they are being paid 40 billion of Kenyan shillings money. They could have ensured a better deal than that. Either they are sleeping or they were just out to hoodwink us and ensure that they lose the money and do not conduct a verifiable, transparent and secure election as we had anticipated. So that's a very big question which we are going to look into, especially how the court is going to go about it, because when the petition came on forth, I really welcomed it because I wanted to see some of these issues being debated out, and then we come up with a decision. Remember, the 2017 one made this election to be a bit transparent, but we need to push the pardon further so that we can be able to have a process which we can be able to trust. Remember, integrity is very important, and the aspect of transparency. If I can't trust that you are doing the right thing and I've given you my money, I will not do business with you next time. Unfortunately for Kenyans, we seem to have very limited choices when it comes to issues of IEBC. We seem to be trusting them with a lot of money. We have so much faith in them, and then they keep letting us down. So it's time we have the court set out some very clear rules. How are we going to go about, especially for me, the issue of our data being out there with a foreign company, which is not believed to be a very good company, because we saw what happened in Philippines. The same thing happened in Philippines, whereby they conducted an election. Election was contested. At the end of the day, the person who won by even votes which were not for registered voters. So it added votes for people. And when they were asked by the courts, actually tell us how you arrived at this, they said the same thing. I don't know how IEBC could not have seen this before. And this question was posed to the chairman and the CEO. Actually, the CEO gave a very interesting answer, saying, I'm not aware of those things, you are just raising them now. From then on, even never did anything. And then we're here now. So it had to take the parliament of Philippines to actually go and do a proper audit after. But then you have a president who has been voted in by some smartmatic people from Venezuela. You see, that is the kind of question we need to ask. Do we want to go this way in future? So I think that's very important. For me, I think I will be waiting to see what the judgment talks about in that particular regard.
I'll be coming to you, Wambui, in a short while, so that we may put this matter to rest. But to you, Maina, looking at what Okia Omtata also said is that, of course, we do not have time, and the more that we do these things manually or hybrid, the more we have issues raised. And even raised an issue asking the judges, we are talking about 14 days to conclude this petition. We have 3 days to listen to this petition. And looking at the timelines that the judges gave in their first ruling they gave before they had the petition, is that time was of essence. We have donated time. But looking at IEBC, the timelines that they have seem always to be having issues, because looking at the ballot papers that came almost just a few days, that's when we realized that we can't do Mombasa, we can't do Kakamega, we can't do Kacheliba, we can't do West Pokot because of some of the issues or errors that could have been identified way early, so that we may have the confidence in our electoral system. And we talked about 50 billion. And if we divide 50 in 5 years, that's about 10 billion shillings each year in matters polls. But unfortunately, we have an independent commission which doesn't seem to be tightening up these loose ends, that we find ourselves in a company that says that, yes, indeed, we have everything, we have the data, but unfortunately, we cannot give you the nitty-gritties of everything that you're asking for. These are some of the errors that should have been way identified ages ago. Maina.
You see, Joe, the risk of engaging IEBC with a lot of litigations is that they will always have logistical challenges and maybe challenges in the process. I said earlier here that we need to trust the constitutional offices, and the trust comes with ensuring also that those particular offices or the office bearers serve the mandate and the objectives as envisaged in the Constitution for these particular institutions. But be that as it may, you see, the reason as why I'm failing to understand some of the challenges that have been put forward in the Supreme Court by Azimio is the fact that they have been having 5 years of engagement with the political divide that defeated them in 2017. Honestly, Azimio wing should have pursued electoral justice from the process level when they came into government through the handshake, not really at the twilight of the handshake post-election of 2022, or in the aftermath of the results that have been announced in 2022. This electoral justice and the credibility of the process should have been a discussion right from the handshake level. But now coming to the Supreme Court to seek justice when the results have been announced, I think it is just putting the cart before the horse and believing that the horse is going to drive the cart to your destination.
All right.
From my understanding, this election was largely manual, and I've said that the voting, the compilation of the results, the announcement, the declaration has been largely manual. The only challenge we can be having with this particular election was at the polling station, because the server was not really at the portal. The server was not really held by the IBC. The server was the polling station. That's where the secret of this election is, the polling station and the IBC portal. And the compilation or the verification was what has been produced or what has been announced at the polling station level vis-a-vis what has been uploaded at the IBC portal. And that is the kind of process that was going on in the Bomas. The returning officers, as they were submitting their Form 34As, it was, or the Form 34Bs, they were verified vis-a-vis what has been uploaded on the IBC portal. So we can't really be complaining each and every other time when it is upon us as political actors to have put up credible agents to go and ensure that the process is good from the announcement level, and it also, as the political actors, to ensure that the people that we have designated as the liaison officers. I remember when the presidential candidates, they were submitting their presidential papers, they proposed 3 individuals, each from political parties, to be the liaison officers between them as the presidential candidates and the IBC. Those liaison officers should be the people who should have been the people who are putting the IBC up to task, not really coming after the results have been announced.
Okay, even as you speak, those are live images coming from the Supreme Court. Of course, security is of the essence here. Remember, certain roads are closed, and you have to get alternative routes for you to maneuver. Those are security personnel there, men in blue, so to speak. This must be around Milimani, and even the journalists are not spared. They have to go the frisking process just to ascertain that only people who are allowed to be inside the Supreme Court get access to the court and its presence, so to speak. And of course, security is quite tight over there. Only the security, press, and any other person who is allowed to be there will be allowed to access this particular place. And I believe any of you can come in, Wakili Gisore. This is quite important in terms of the intensity of this kind of ruling that the country is eagerly awaiting. Gisore, perhaps, what did you make of this?
I guess, Victor, security is very important.
Yes.
Security is very important, especially when we are going to deliver a very important judgment. Mm-hmm. And I think it's also incumbent upon the security forces,
yes,
to see to it that we don't end up having a disaster, especially somebody being injured or somebody being hurt. That is why, because the decision which is likely to come is either going to go 2 ways. There are people who are going to feel that it didn't go their way, and there are people who are going to rejoice. So whichever way it goes, you will want to anticipate some kind of actions or reactions. That is why I think they are trying to put a barrier so that the judges also need their security to feel comfortable to give the ruling. Remember, previously this has been done from the Supreme Court, but I think because of the security around the Supreme Court, the Milimani court is a bit more secure because it's quite barricaded, and even you saw some advocates sweating it out in the chambers, because even the room they were using is right in the middle of the court premises. So the circulation of air might have been an issue. So you shouldn't blame people for sweating it out. So I think it's just because to provide enough security and to ensure the judges are comfortable to give the ruling or the judgment, and the people
but
there
of course,
cannot be
but of course, even as you speak about the security.
Gentlemen, allow me to just interject. I think we have some developing news. is that they have given what we have been waiting for, that is the notice on the judgment, because they've talked about the Raila Amolo Odinga and 6 others petitioners and William Ruto and 10 others as respondents. Take notice that the judgment in this petition will be delivered Monday the 5th day of September, that is today at 12 noon at the Supreme Court of Kenya, Milimani Law Courts. Again, is that the Apex Court has issued what we have been waiting for, that is a notice on the judgment, because that is exactly what the CJ talked about when they convened, the last time they convened, is that they were going to give a notice to deliver the judgment. So it's going to be taking place at exactly noon, and as you've seen is that the roads are already combed off. I can tell you because I do report at the courts, and this is one of the routes that is quite busy, bearing in mind that there are so many government offices there and ministries as well. But as you can see, no vehicles whatsoever, other than 1 or 2 vehicles, maybe bringing in journalists, maybe bringing in some of the advocates in the case, but largely the roads are empty, a few people here and there, because the government has talked about, if you don't have any issue whatsoever around the Supreme Court, kindly don't get to that route. Wambui?
I begin first by highlighting, I think it's grammatically wrong to say 12 noon. I don't
noon.
Yes, it should be. If it's noon, it's noon.
Thanks for
if
that.
It's 12. And I think this is an indication that is coming even from the courts.
Yeah, actually.
Yes. You've just read what has been written in the notice.
Yes.
So that when we say if it's noon, it's noon.
Yes.
So really, yes. I think the indication is quite timely. It's important that we are guided by time. Mm-hmm. Time usually is the enemy. And I mean, people have engagements. Mm-hmm. And even you people who are doing these broadcasts, you need to be well guided on the timing so that you get it properly or you get it right. And then again, one thing that I must highlight, and this perhaps comes after what Mr. Maina has said, who is sitting on the other side of the studio. I think we agree to some extent on certain issues, but I think he has a very queer way in which he's looking at other issues. And I think it's important that I highlight. Firstly, I agree with him. It is important that we also encourage the use of technology at the last stages of the election, especially when it comes to the voting. And I have argued it even elsewhere that it is important that we resolve the use of technology at the voting stage, so that we also allow people who have been incarcerated in prisons, we have our prisoners, so that they can also participate meaningfully into the elections, be it in the national elections and even in the county elections, so that you will not have to travel all the way from, if you live in Kajiado and you are a voter in Nairobi, you will not have to travel to Nairobi for you to exercise your right to voting. No, you just need to get into a booth in Kajiado, then from the electronic process, you will be able to vote for your preferred candidate or even MCA in Malango Kubwa ward or Mabatini ward or Ngei ward in the Mathare constituency. So I think it's important that we adopt the use of technology. But one thing that at least I think the viewers should understand and hear this is that, well, we have also adopted the use of technology in other forums, but particularly at the time of the registration of voters, we implore the use of technology. We use technology, and we've been seeing it quite often, where we register people using the electronic process. Then there is also the identification of voters, so that when you go to the polling station, and I think this formed the crux of the dispute that we had, on a day to the elections, where the Court of Appeal came out strongly and said that we can only use the manual voter register if we are convinced that you cannot be identified either through the KIMS kit, the alphanumerics have failed, then as a last resort, which you must also get a confirmation from the returning officers, that is the only stage at which we allow the use of the manual system. So to a large extent, I think our voting system is electronic, even the transmission of the results. We allow the transmission, the use of the portal, it's electronic. So the only stage that we do not have the use of the technology is at the point of voting. So that is where we have a point of departure, and I think the time is ripe. And as Okiya Omtata had submitted before the Supreme Court, the time is ripe that we use technology so that people can be voting from anywhere. Remember, there was also another petition that had been filed by, I think it's Priscilla Nyokabi or Nyokabi someone. One of the petitioners that were being represented by my senior, Kibe. Is that he made a lot of argument, which arguments I think senior counsel Ngatia, Fred Ngatia, termed them as very abstract. But I think even if they're abstract or not, I think this is for the Supreme Court to determine. But I think there is a point. Remember, the IEBC deployed a number of clerks and a number of returning officers and a number of staffs who are serving the IEBC to ensure that we have a free and fair electoral process throughout the country. And we had some people who are deployed in other areas that they were not even registered as voters. And they ended up not even participating in the election that they were manning. So to that extent, it also gives a lot of weight to the argument that indeed the time is ripe for us to consider the use of technology in the election. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that it has been argued elsewhere that the easiest way to rig an election is through the use of technology. The manipulation of technology and all that. But I think every good thing also has its also disadvantages. So, well, I think at the heart of what we should be experiencing today in Njue is that the Supreme Court will just be, living true to their objective as a Supreme Court. Remember, the Supreme Court in its very design has some unique objectives. It is to ensure that they assert the supremacy of the Constitution and the sovereignty of the people, so that it should not be very easy for the Supreme Court to disturb the will of the people unless it is shown, and of course this we should be understanding from the reasoning of the judges, that there has been a subversion of the will of the people as far as the election of the 9th day of August is concerned. So to that extent, you recall the Supreme Court, the first call is to preserve the sovereignty of the people, and also is to give us a fair and very assertive interpretation of the Constitution. Remember, it is this court that has the sole responsibility of telling us what the law says, or what we think the law says is actually what the law is saying. So that you've been seeing lawyers reading the same section of the law or the same article of the law, but they have different interpretations.
Indeed.
Yes, so that you hear learned Professor Githu Muigai telling us when we have different context of the word commission, so that sometimes the word commission might not be meaning the commissioners. I mean, you see, all these fallacious arguments. So
we have the judges have an uphill task in trying to decipher that, because we do not have any other people who can do that. And unfortunately or fortunately, the Supreme Court is the apex court. So the constitutional interpretation is what will stand.
Indeed. But there is one thing that we must be at the lookout. Remember, on a number of occasions when the Supreme Court has been invited to declare some certain sections as unconstitutional, it has wringed its hands. It has refused to make those declarations, saying that the people or the court that has the first original jurisdiction or the first authority to declare certain sections or certain regulations as unconstitutional is the High Court. But on other cases, and I think we had a mention of this, there are other cases that the Supreme Court moved at the first instance, has declared some sections as unconstitutional. And particularly speaking, you recall at the wake of or the dawn of the new or the current constitution and the creation of the Supreme Court, we had a special jurisdiction that was created for the Supreme Court, so that judges who had been removed or judges who had resigned because of their conduct in a certain matter, and the disputes had been determined, the Supreme Court had the jurisdiction, going by the previous constitutional, the Supreme Court Act. This is particularly speaking of Section 24, the one that was declared unconstitutional. They had the power to review files of judges who had been removed from office due to misconduct. But now, I think it's the year 2013 or 2015, 2013 or 2012 there, that the Supreme Court came, sitting as an appellate court. It actually declared this section as unconstitutional, and yet this section had not even gone through, debates or arguments before the High Court and the Court of Appeal. So really, it's a wait and see for me, especially when it comes to the invitation for the court to declare some certain sections or regulations as unconstitutional. Yet those arguments have not been made before the High Court. So really, I think we are living in very interesting times. And one thing also that the citizens must know is that we might, we do not know, we might experience a situation where we have a divided court also, so that we have 4 or 3 against 4 or 5 against 2.
And it's a good thing, because we've seen that happen in the BBI case.
Yes,
and the other case that the court has had the chance to listen to.
Yes, it's a good thing. It's a good show of democracy. Remember, the value of dissenting opinions when it comes to writing of judgments is that it helps us to decide how to interpret, or how to even make amendments and reforms on our laws. So that is the value of dissenting opinions. Really, they might not have any value when it comes to the final outcome, but really moving forward, they will have some certain value. And this is something that the court, that the people should be expectant of, and recall that the reason why the Constitution has proposed for an uneven number, an odd number of judges, is so that when there is a stalemate, it is very easy to break the stalemate. So that when we have 7, we will likely have either 3 against 4, either 5 against 2, either 6 against 1. So really, and that is the beauty about our constitutional design.
Yeah, and of course, a little bit later I would come to Wakili Gesore, and it's a good thing, because it's good for Kenyans to understand that yes, indeed, it is a 7-judge bench, but each judge will be writing his or her own determination on the same. And still at the court, because you guys are officers of the court, and it's something that Okiya Omtata raised, although it wasn't going to be in the submissions, but he said that, guys, if we have to be doing this digitally, then 14 days are sufficient to hear and determine a presidential petition. But looking at the time constraint, when this was filed, the petition was filed, the judges, the key point they talked about was a matter of time. They had to strike out some of the petitions, they had to consolidate some, and allocate very strict timelines. And Okiya, in his submissions, he talked about, if at all we're going to be doing it digitally, then 14 days are sufficient. And if we are not going to be doing it electronically, then 14 days are not sufficient. I would like to pick your mind on the same, Wakili.
Thank you, Ben Troy. I think what Okiya was trying to raise is a very important aspect which we need to rethink about, because if we were to do this thing technologically or using technology purely, 14 days are even more, actually, are even more, because by the close of the polling stations, at least by 12 we need to have the figures general, because it's just populating automatically, and that does not take time. So the issue is Kenyans do not trust each other. Wakili Shadraki has raised a very important point, that the easiest way to steal an election is through technology. We have Americans still complaining. I saw one American commentator in actually Fox News, if I'm not wrong, actually raised the issue that, Kenyans are brave enough to actually tackle issues which affected the election. But while here, we had Russians actually hack into our election process, manipulate the results, and we're not even comfortable talking about that. But then even, I think I saw somewhere in the American process, I think 12 Russians have been arrested in relation to election offenses. So that means the trust the trust deficit we have in this country is actually not only in Kenya, but everywhere else. I've told you of the scenario in Philippines. So then, if we're going to go technologically, the way Okiya Omtata is saying, we need to be assured that this is going to be a foolproof process, whereby I don't need to start doubting that IBC could be playing games with my vote, or my candidate is actually going to be played at the end of the day because of elections, because of technology. So that is something which we need to walk ourselves through step by step, and we can start now. Once we start now, we assuage our fears that indeed this is going to work. Then we can. Wakili will tell you that in the LSK election, we do it electronically. You're in court, you sit and you vote. Even the system is not ours. It's actually some other professional body's system. Of course, we had issues around that, but when we asked them for an audit, they came and explained themselves. They said, this is what we do, 1, 2, 3. Then we were like, okay, you guys do your thing. So we have been able to actually take the credibility of an electoral process as advocates because we have asked questions and they have been answered. So it's until we ask Chebukati and team or IBC the questions which we want to ask for a technology process and they answer and we are satisfied, we will be able to give them the green light. But as long as Majanu will be telling us, I'm not aware, those things I'm hearing them now. It means the man did conduct a process of audit or what is it called? Before you give a tender, there's a process you're supposed to do to determine whether indeed the people we are giving, they're correct. You need to know their history. If they could have done the history of Smartmatic, I'm using Smartmatic because that's the center of this, we could not be having so many issues. But when you are told right from the word go before election that this company you have contracted has a very, very funny history, and you go ahead and say, actually, I'm not even aware of that, but still we are going to do this. How am I going to trust that this process is going to be a clean one? And then at the end of the day, we are here discussing about the same. So Okiya is raising a very good point, but as Kenyans, what is key is to assure our fears that nothing wrong is going to be happening or no games will be played with the results.
And I would like to get into your feel on, I think I'll get some sentiments from Maina before we go to Wamboi, but I'm informed that, Vicky?
Absolutely. And on this particular end from your screen, you can see Sarafina Robbie already on standby to give us an update on what you should expect. Oops, Sarafina not yet ready. All right, we'll get back to Sarafina once we get ready with that. All right, let's cross over to Sarafina Robbie to give us an update. Sarafina, habari asubuhi, good to see you. To this particular end, I know a lot is happening around the Supreme Court and it's pressing. So far, we've seen security heightened. Could you please just give us the sight and sounds from that particular area of the capital city?
Indeed, a very good morning, Victor and Troy. As you've mentioned, the security around the Milimani Law Court, where the Supreme Court is expected to deliver its judgment at around 12 noon time, is very heightened, and only a few people are allowed to access this particular place so far. So many roads have been barricaded. So far, to the far end, at the National Library, one is not allowed to get in from that particular place, and also from the roundabout at Integrity Center. All the roads have been closed leading to this particular place, meaning that only a few people and the people that have been able to see are mostly lawyers representing different parties, as well as journalists and security officers on standby, just waiting to get to hear how the judgment will be delivered, whether they'll be able to uphold the declared results that were the presidential election results that were declared on the 15th of August, or they'll be able to nullify the results, whether they'll be able to give orders indicating for a retallying of the votes that were cast, given what was expected from the 7 petitions that were consolidated and had in a span of about 3 days. Thereafter, the 7-judge bench led by the Chief Justice Martha Koome retreated to go write the judgment, and therefore, as of today, we expect them at around 12, as they had said that come Monday in the morning, they'll be able to give us a notice indicating when they'll be able to to give the judgment, and they've already done that. So at about exactly 12 noon, we'll be set and ready to get to hear the judgment from the 7-judge bench. And what we expect from these judges is that they might give their judgment unanimously, as it was in 2013, or they might choose to focus their judgment on the 9 issues that they had stated out, which included on whether the presidential result, or the President-elect William Ruto was able to meet the 50+ as required constitutionally, whether all the regulations in regards to elections were followed, among other issues. So we'll be following up to get to see how they'll be able to make their judgment come 12 noon today, and so that we can get to understand then what will happen, if they'll be able to declare or to uphold the results that had been declared. That means then that the President-elect William Ruto will be sworn in the few coming days. And if they'll be able to nullify the results, then this means that the elections, the presidential elections, will be held in the next 60 days. So that's what we're expecting right now, Victor. The situation is very calm here at the Milimani Law Court, where the Supreme Court is sitting. Back to you.
All right. That is Sarafina Robbie there. Sarafina, you've removed your earphones. I would have asked you a question, but you're becoming smart there. All right. Let's cross over to Junei Karisa, who is in Mombasa. Junei, to give us an update as well. Junei, good morning from the coastal city of Mombasa. What is happening down there, Karisa?
Good morning, Victor Olo. We are on the streets of Mombasa, and of course, as the country anxiously waits for that verdict to be dispensed, even the residents of Mombasa are also anxious, waiting to see if that decision will favor most of their supporters, their presidential candidates that they were supporting. During the August 9th elections, after the pronouncement by Chebukati, Mombasa County did not witness any celebratory activities majorly, because it is perceived as an ODM stronghold. So the fact that Raila Odinga was not declared the winner, of course you'd see that Mombasa County did not enter into a celebratory mood. So perhaps today, if the decision by the court is nullified, is upheld from the petitioner's side, then of course maybe this county can enter into a celebratory mood. But let me not preempt what these residents might say. Let me just engage a few of them to just give me some of their expectation, even as CJ is expected to give a definite ruling later on in the day. Tuambie jina lako na tuambie matarajio yako.
Jina langu ni Rafael Odienyo Akaya. Mimi ni mkazi wa Ziwa la Ng'ombe, eneo la Nyali. Sasa hivi naongea jijini Mombasa, Mwembetari. Kwa kusema kweli, tumerespect Supreme Court judges, and more so tumerespect Mama Martha Koome na wale wenzake 6. Sisi katika Mombasa tuko tayari, na our expectation ni kuwa tunataka ile kitu tunaita transparency, accountability, kumaanisha ni ukweli, kwa sababu wao katika court wanajua kila kitu, na wale ni wasomi kutushinda. Kwa hivyo ile kitu tunatarajia ni haki na ukweli, na bila haki na ukweli nchi hii sioni ikienda mahali, kwa sababu kura tulipiga na tulirauka na tulikuwa na ukweli na tulijua mshindi ni nani. Kwa hivyo hata wao wanajua mshindi ni nani. Tunataka mshindi leo ili Kenya iendelee, na bila kutangaza mshindi basi naona kama Kenya inaweza kupasuka, na ikipasuka itapasuka nao watu 7.
Hatuombi hayo, lakini kuna vipengele tofauti ambavyo koti itakuwa inaamua. Wewe kama mkaaji unataka kipengele gani ambacho kiweze kizingatiwa, hususan manake kuna zile fomu ambazo zilipokuwa pale, kuna masuala ya Chebukati kutofata sheria kulingana na yale matamshi ama kumtawaza kama rais, naibu wa rais William Ruto kama rais mteule. Niambie tu, kuna kipengele kipi ambacho ungeona kingeweza kuangaziwa kikamilifu?
Very well. Article 80 bracket 4 inasema iwapo kura imeharibika na tumepata ni yule ameharibu, hakuwa mshindi. Na katika hicho kipengele inasema yule mshindi apewe certificate papo hapo bila kuchelewesha.
Kwa hivyo wewe hutaki tuwafanye uchaguzi mwingine?
Uchaguzi mwingine italeta vurugu kwa sababu tumetoka kwa corona, uchumi ni ngumu, watoto hata wametushinda, chakula imetushinda kununua. Kwa hivyo hatutaki turudi katika uchaguzi. Yule mshindi awe declared, Kenya endelee mbele.
Asante sana, asante mzee. Njoo tu nielezee tu pia wewe, nipe vipengele ambavyo unataka Supreme Court iweze kusema hii leo asubuhi. Angalia tu mbele hivi. Anza na jina lako.
Kwa majina naitwa Samuel Okoth Kwama. Mimi kwanza nashukuru Mwenyezi Mungu vile ameleta amani. Tangu tupige kura, peace imeprevail. After peace prevail, tunataka justice. Justice, truth and justice must prevail. Ndio Kenya itapata haki. Na iko wimbo ya taifa inasema haki iwe ngao na mlinzi wetu. Tusicheze na haki yetu. Tulipiga kura, iko vipengele hapo. Kama mshindi itapatikana na Raila Amolo Odinga, kuna haja tu renew election. Apewe certificate hapo. Ile Chebukati tupuliwe mbali. Kwisha maneno.
Kwa hivyo wewe hutaki uchaguzi mwingine?
Hakuna, it's a waste of time and a waste of energy and a waste of resources.
Asante sana. Dadi, wewe nieleze tu, je, wewe ni kipengele kipi ambacho pengine ama matarajio yako siku ya leo katika uchaguzi?
Mimi yangu ni kungojea uamuzi wa koti. Kusubiri uamuzi wa koti. Maana nina imani ya kwamba watatoa uamuzi wa busara wa kujiridhisha. Maana nchi ina amani, kupitia maombi nchi ina amani. Na hakuna vurugu itatokea, maana Mungu yuko juu ya nchi ya Kenya.
Ungewaambiaje pengine wa Kenya wanaposubiria?
Wa Kenya nawaambia wawe na amani, watulie uamuzi wa koti. Watakapoamua tutaendelea na maisha.
Asante sana. Niambie jina lako na pengine matarajio yako hii leo.
Mimi kwa majina naitwa Paul Tocho. Matarajio yangu ni kwamba tunatamani kujua uwazi kwa wapi. Hiyo ndio kitu ninatamani sana, tutangaziwe, watuambie ukweli ni wapi na urongo ilikuwa wapi. Na tena najua kwa upande kuna wale wataumia, kuna wale pia watasherekea. Lakini kitu ya kwanza naomba pia tuwe na amani na utulivu na Kenya iendelee.
Pengine kuna vipengele kidogo ambavyo vinaweza kuangaziwa wakati koti ambavyo itapeana ruling yake. Wewe kama mkaaji ungetaka kipi ambacho kiweze kiangaziwa zaidi kwenye ile ruling ambayo itakuwa inatolewa?
Kwanza kwa hii ruling kitu ningependa tena kama hao majaji watatuambia in case kama itakuwa nullified, ni IBC ndio wataendelea hii IBC ama kutakuwa na tume nyingine ambayo itachaguliwa kuandaa hii uchaguzi? Because kama itakuwa nullified, sisi hatutakuwa na uaminifu na IBC. Na lazima iende, na sasa hao ndio watatuambia which process are we supposed to take.
Na pengine uhamasisho wako kwa Wakenya ama wakaaji wa Mombasa wanaposubiria ruling hiyo?
Hapa naona kila kitu is stand still. Naona watu wanaongojea, hata ukiangalia maduka zingine watu hawajafungua kwa sababu kila mtu anajua itafanyika saa ngapi. Hata mimi mwenyewe niko hapa na ngoja itakuwa saa ngapi ndio ifanyike. Hapo ndio najua kila kitu itakuwa imechukua nafasi yake.
Asante sana. Hayo tu ni Victor Olo. Those are just some sentiments of the residents of Mombasa. It is an anxious mood really, and of course we have not seen many business premises opening up as they would, because at 8, as soon as 8 o'clock, most businesses are usually open in Mombasa County. It is expected, some of their sentiments are expected, seeing that ODM is a major stronghold in Mombasa County. They are anxious, they are waiting for the ruling of the 7-bench judge. One thing, they are saying that they do not want a rerun. Number 2, they want the announcement and the pronouncement by the court as to who won, so that the country can move forward. Number 3 is a clarion call for peace, even as we wait. And we are following up with this day's events. Hopefully no major incidents, of course, will be reported, but the security apparatus are on high alert. So, Victor Olo, I'm handing it back to you in studio as I continue having a cup of tea with the residents of Mombasa on their feel of the Supreme Court ruling.
Carissa, talk of tea, I can see some two gentlemen taking their breakfast behind you there, making us feel so hungry in studio. But just a quick one, how is the business situation in the coastal town of Mombasa, basically, in 1 minute? Okay, that is Carissa. Junei from Mombasa County, give us an update on what is happening. Of course, I'd love to ask the gentleman, the learned friends. According to him, it was bracket.
Subsection 4.
Yes. Because according to me, it talks about integrity, something to do with integrity. Do we even have it in the first place?
Victor, I'm not sure which one you're asking, because the one I think which we should be looking at should be the Elections Act, Section 80.
Yes.
Yes, that one is the one which is talking about the tallying, whereby somebody can be issued with a certificate.
Yes.
But this is a presidential election. I don't think we should be able to be talking about the Elections Act because we have a constitution which clearly demarcates what a presidential election should be, and should be able to address some of those issues. So if we are going to actually abandon the constitution and start looking at the Elections Act, I think we will be going a step lower. For the other elections, it's allowed, but I don't think the presidential one we are supposed to be looking at the Elections Act.
Yeah.
There are some areas we can look, but not tallying, because tallying, how do you start retallying across the country? It's like conducting another election. So it's as good as nullify that one, just do another fresh election. Yes, that's I think the most important.
Still on that, perhaps Vicky, there's something that has been raised by one of the guys. Ignore where sometimes they are mentioning some of the laws that are not in existence, but there's something that has been raised by one of the guys that Junei has been able to interview, and asking, yes, they're keenly following up, and we know very well it's either annulling or affirming, but they're talking about, okay, so if we are going back to the ballot, are we going back with this damaged vehicle that is IEBC? That was a pertinent question to me.
I think that was a very valid question from that concerned Kenyan, because from where I stand, if this election is annulled, or if we are asked to go for a rerun, then from the submissions and the petitions presented in court, the fingers were pointing at Chebukati and his commission. We have a section of the commission already saying, we're not interested in this job. This work was shortly done, and we can't take ownership of these results, and they were quite opaque. So there's a sense in which I see that these commissioners could actually not be even interested in their job, for starters. Secondly, we have Chebukati, who has been accused of a lot of things. If the election is annulled, is on those things. Once that is actually given as a judgment of the court, then it means Chebukati is not fit to run that particular office. And the commission itself does not seem to be in a position to run this election. There's also another very important issue which we need to look at. Once Chebukati is out of the commission, we don't have a provision where we can have one of the commissioners jump to be the chairman. Or we don't have a provision in that particular nature, because the provision which provides for chairman is very specific, that the chairman has got very distinct qualification aside from the commissioners. No other commissioner can be able to fit in his shoes. I think for administrative purposes within the running of the IBC we can do. But if we are going to go into an election, presidential election, there is a very distinct role which is meant for the chairman. From where I stand, I think we will be going into a constitutional conundrum whereby we'll have to sit and start asking ourselves, did we think this process through, where we have a chairman some very special powers? You saw that being litigated in court, and the aspect of what I think Wakili Shadrack has tried to allude to, the advocates for the for the IBC were trying to raise that, when you talk of commission, you don't mean commissioners when you talk of such things, and then the chairman, you're not talking about, those distinct roles. We need to decide the housekeeping process around the presidential election is very important for us to determine and be able to come up with a clear roadmap that can we be able either to have an amendment to that so that if a chairman messes or we need to kick him out for some reason, we can quickly have an alternative and be able to go into an election. But now, this is going to be a tricky process for continuity purposes if the election is ordered for a rerun or a fresh election. Once those things are issued, then the court should be able to tell us what is the way forward on that particular issue of the chairman, because if he's indicted or if he's found culpable, then I think we'll be in a very tight spot.
Yes, and let me also get Wambui Shadrack's opinion on the same, because looking at one of the issues that has been raised, first of all, let me cross over to Victor, but Wambui, when you come back, we will try to see exactly what this guy was talking about. Remember, this is an independent commission, so exactly what happens if at all we are going back to the ballot. Let me first of all cross over to Victor on the other side of the studio.
All right. Okay, and I think at this particular point, gentlemen, it's always fair to have a very short breather, and then we come back. Director, if we can have that shot of Kisumu on my screen there, we'll be crossing over to Kisumu just immediately after we take a break. But for now, it's a minute, yes, 2 minutes past 10 a.m. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're still going to continue with this discussion. We'll be right back.
Impunity must be punished. Impunity must be punished. And impunity unpunished breeds arrogance. And arrogance leads to arbitrary exercise of power.
Where it is established that a state officer is subverting the Constitution and the rule of law, the court's hands are not shackled by procedural niceties. This is the beauty of this Wanjico Constitution that we have. It's transformative, and some people say it's a very overused word, but in these circumstances it's ideal and can bite when occasion demands. The toothless bulldog is long dead and buried. Please, Madam Chief Justice and honorable judges of this court, bite and bite for the glory of this court.
Once a plumber has fixed your bathroom, that plumber has no business being in your bathroom when you're showering. If you find him at that time, you tell him, get behind me, Satan.
Men and women who run for office in this country must accept that it is possible to win. Indeed, it is even more likely to lose, because typically an election involves more than two people, and the chances of the losers being more than the winner are very high. Until we accept that, we are going to be harming the country, we are going to be harming our institutions, we are going to be hurting independent institutions and individuals who work in those institutions. Kenyans who give a lot, ask for nothing, and get to be denigrated in the hallowed halls of this court.
A child from humble origin ought to aspire one day to be a Chief Justice of this country. A child of very humble origin ought to aspire to be a top surgeon in this country. I say all this because, in all fairness, unless we show hope and opportunity to all, then we'll be missing an important aspect of our growth. Considering that there is an entitlement is to engage in an illusion. That illusion ought to be replaced by reality. Reality is that it is voters who make their choice. And once voters have made their choice, let us inculcate a culture that my brothers and sisters on this side are now used to. We walk to our court, we may think The law is on our side. We may think we are entitled to victory, but we accept the verdict of the court because much as we may think we are eloquent litigators, the final word is always with the court.
An election is an event. You're going to the ballot, you're going to cast your vote, and you're hoping that your vote counts. We shouldn't be in a position where we hope that our votes count. We should be in a position where we know our votes count.
The court appreciates very deeply in that any order has consequences, and those consequences must be consequences that can be contained in our democratic and constitutional process. The Supreme Court cannot act in vain. It cannot act so as that the judgment should read like a learned legal article. The Supreme Court always acts so that it can defend democracy and the rule of law and constitutionalism in a practical and enforceable way. The sanctimonious, self-righteous, pompous pontification of the so-called four commissioners are an afterthought. They are a complete and total afterthought. And should be seen as that.
Because of the deficiency of trust in this country, ballot ballots can only be opened on the eve of the elections to avoid a situation where IEBC is accused of having interfered or in any way manipulated the ballot papers.
When we make these allegations in our election petitions, perhaps we need to also ask ourselves if we have done that which the law contemplates of us.
Whoever has ears, let them hear. The Supreme Court has shown us that you can also be a quote-unquote learned friend by quoting the Bible. An impressive Supreme Court session characterized by quotes, terminologies, and metaphors that left keyboard warriors for once rethink about their self-imposed title, the Keyboard Warriors. And whoever can type, let them type.
So the sanctimonious, self-righteous, pompous pontification.
What are you saying? What is he saying?
I am tweeted. Now this Supreme Court proceedings will school many. Sasa amicus curiae ni mnyama gani? John the Baptist, yani hamjui lakuna ni nini but mmenyamaza na mko sawa? Ha, laughing emoji. With the great battle came the great humor. Now we might want to further interrogate George Oraro's statement about Marjan Hussein, who walked into what exactly?
Be Prime Minister.
All right, welcome back to Kenya's Choice 2022 on this 5th day of September. Let's get back into our conversation about the 13th Parliament and, of course, the race that's heating up for Speaker of the House. Two men have been fronted by either side of the political divide. Kenneth Marende for the Azimio side and Moses Wetangula for Kenya Kwanza. And I'll lead in with a question coming in from social media. Bob Owino is asking, Actually, this is directed to Honorable Mbui and Fred. To clear the air about Kalonzo Musyoka being shortchanged for the National Assembly Speaker's seat with the former Speaker Kenneth Marende because they both come from Azimio. So what do you make of that shift? I'll start with you, Honorable Mbui.
Okay, thank you. Let me make this very, very clear. That from the beginning, my party leader, the Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, was not going to be Speaker. The position that he's taking up in the Azimio leadership, if things go our way, is Chief Minister, which is the equivalent of Prime Minister. So he'll be running government business, also even in the House. He's the one who'll be directing the House on what to do. So that's a position that he was going for. It is only during one of our meetings that somebody out of despair mentioned that why don't we have His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka go for the position of Speaker of the House. Yeah. So that was never it was never part of our plan, and that is why we've gone back to, we've gone back to factory settings, which is Kalonzo is going for Prime Minister after the ruling, Marende is going to be the Speaker of the House. That is the position of Azimio.
Junet Mohammed said we're looking for someone who is tried and tested, and Marende was a unifying factor during the time that he was Speaker. What do you make of his nomination, Fred?
Maybe just to reiterate on what Honorable Mbui has said. Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, from the beginning, and if Kenyans can recall, when Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga was unveiling Martha Karua as the deputy president or candidate, he did say that Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka will be the chief minister, and we do believe that will happen. We do believe that will happen at its right time, following what we do expect. Number two, Kenneth Otiato Marende, he's a gentleman who has been tested and tried. And in fact, I'm sure members of parliament who were in the last house can bear me witness that they've missed Marende in his Solomonic rulings. And we know for sure, when this election for Speaker comes, even our good friends, my good friend here, Honorable Edward, will vote for Marende because of the history Marende has in bringing the House together and trying to be non-partisan and clear in his agenda in terms of leading the National Assembly. So for me, I think the choice of Marende is a very good choice. Somebody who has been tried, tested, somebody whom we have seen his work, somebody whom we can actually vouch for. We have seen instances in the previous parliaments where speakers are rogue. We have seen instances where speakers make rulings, they don't listen to the other members. But in Marende, if you go by history, then I think that choice by Azimio was a perfect choice. Because I can tell you, Vicky, what Kenyans are waiting for, they're waiting for a parliament that is coordinated. They're waiting for a parliament that is unified. They're waiting for a parliament that considers the interest of the public. And they're waiting for a parliament that is not rogue. In that doing, then we must have a speaker that also conforms to those virtues. That speaker, in my view, would be Kenneth Otiato Marende. So I think Azimio made a very good choice. What we are wishing the public is that after today, and we pray again that the judgment favors Kenyans, not politicians, then so that when the parliament sits in their first sitting, probably this week or by 8th, 9th, when the members will be electing their speaker, we do have Kenneth Otiato Marende elected as the speaker. Because clearly, as Honorable Boya said, we do have majority. But you see also, going by what happens today, majority of people who are moving away, and even some who are in Kenya Kwanza, would want to shift allegiance and say, okay, we thought that we are not in now, let's move and vote for Speaker Marende because he's a guy that we can trust in leading us in the House. So we hope that the election of the Speaker will clear some of these issues. We also hope that members of Parliament, Honorable Edward and Honorable Mbui and their colleagues will elect an individual that has
history of performance, that has history of unity. I am not sure what the other side are pushing or who they are pushing. I'm not sure. But if we are to compare whoever they are pushing with who we are pushing, then I can tell you majority of Kenyans will agree with me that they'd rather Kenneth Otiato as their speaker. And that can only be done through a vote from the members of parliament.
Honorable Muri, I'm very curious to find out, what you think about all this. Of course, the Kenya Kwanza candidate, Moses Wetangula, who is the senator-elect for Bungoma. What does that mean in terms of the race he just won in his county and now vying for this position?
Yeah, thank you, Vicky. Allow me just before I answer that, maybe I just fault my friend Fred here. Because if the seat is about, if positions is about people who are tried and tested, Kalonzo Musyoka would be the speaker. Kalonzo Musyoka today will be the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya, or rather the deputy of Raila Amolo Odinga. But I see that's not the choice. Now, Kalonzo on one hand, he missed being the deputy. On the other hand, he has missed being the nominee of the president, the speaker nominee. And make matter worse, some of these things in the coalition, they are tied in a pre-election agreement. I don't think there is that kind of a clause whereby Kalonzo is supposed to become the prime minister. So, my point here is very simple. The question of being tried and tested, I would say Kalonzo Musyoka comes in as one who has been tried and tested, both in terms of being the deputy president and also in Africa. But coming to the side of Kenya Kwanza, we had what you call pre-election agreement between Ford Kenya, ANC, and UDA. Then we formed the Kenya Kwanza coalition, and we clearly stipulated that Wetangula, Moses Honorable Wetangula, the senator, would be our first choice for the speaker. And for that, as far as we are concerned, I would say it's a foregone conclusion. Our numbers in parliament are seen differently. And also, coming to the issue about the independents, remember the independents have a choice to vote. And being independent does not mean that you don't have a position. You do have a position. In law, you have a right to vote. And we have signed an agreement with them for working closely, both inside and outside Parliament. And therefore, when you work on the numbers, the people like UDM have brought in almost close to 10 registrators. So, bottom line, we are saying our candidate, who is Moses Wetangula, the senator for Bungoma, is and will be the next speaker of the National Parliament.
Let me go back. Yes, go ahead.
Vicky, I think Honorable Member here, Edward, is not being honest. He cannot say that he doesn't believe that there was such an agreement that puts Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka at an advantage point of being a potential chief cabinet secretary or prime minister, if you like. And he believes that in their side, Kenya Kwanza, there was one that puts one of them as such. Yeah. And we are in a coalition agreement that was signed and deposited. As a politician and as an elected member, he ought to have known that those documents were deposited with the register of political parties, and she's the custodian. Number two, I want to ask him, because in the provisions of law, Article 106, there shall be a speaker of National Assembly who is elected and not a member of the Parliament. Now, here is a case where Kenya Kwanza are promising Moses Wetangula meat, and the meat is hanged on top of a tree, and he cannot reach it because of the legal hurdles that is between him and the meat. I don't think they are being honest with Baba Waroma. They are not. Because the first thing that Baba Waroma must do, he must resign from his position as Senate. If things go separate, different ways by today evening, then what does that mean? Is he risking losing a seat that will not Otherwise, we would have served the people of Bungoma, senator, and go for a seat that is not going to get because loyalty will shift, or what is he trying to do? I think Honorable Murui should remain Legal Affairs Secretary of Kenya Kwanza and not Azimio, because he has no clue of details that are in the Azimio coalition agreement. We do have those information. And we ask them that in this contest of the speaker, for us, we are clear in our mind. We are bringing the people of Kenya through the members of parliament, an individual that is not a member of parliament as provided for by law in Article 106.
So let me have Honorable Muriu respond. He's pulled out his constitution there. But you know, in terms of the understanding politically is that even if Moses Wetangula loses the senatorial seat, loses the speaker seat, he'll get a nice cushiony job as a cabinet secretary within Kenya Kwanza, and that's what we've kind of seen in past regimes. But you know, Honorable Murui, let me have you respond first, and then come to Fred and Honorable Murui.
Yeah, the beauty about all these pre-election agreements, they're deposited with the registrar or political parties, and we know the content. It's not a secret in terms of who gets what, and therefore I do not want to belabor on the issue about Kalonzo Musyoka, because again, it does not belong to my Kenya Kwanza faction. But I would say openly that I think if there's someone who has been shortchanged, is Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka. Coming to the issue about Wetangula, Senator Bungoma, we have no doubt about our mind, because at the opportune moment, once the President Gazette, the first sitting of Parliament, he will deposit his resignation with the clerk of the National Assembly, and therefore he becomes a candidate for National Assembly. And again, we have remember some of these things about. In Kenya Kwanza, we normally say mambo ni kujipanga. As far as we are concerned, as we have jipangaed properly, with the right numbers, we have jipangaed properly with the right approach to issues, and we don't see any reason why Kenya Kwanza coalition would not be able to deliver the position of the Speaker of National Assembly. We do not want to recycle the way that the Azimio is doing. We don't want to recycle. We want to bring people with new ideas, fresh minds, fresh faces. Remember, Baba Loma was in the Senate on the other previously. Now we want him to bring new ideas to the new parliament. So here we are. We have the numbers, and we have the right people to be able to steer the next parliament.
And what about the numbers that Kenya Kwanza currently has in Senate? If they lose Senator-elect Moses Wetangula, what does that mean?
Remember, this is a democratic country, and for you to win, you must throw the dice on the floor. And from where we sit, and that's why my competitors here have been complaining that we are poaching their members. Kenya Kwanza, you know, might say, sisi ni watu wa kujipanga. So we were not doing that just for optics. We were not bringing the UDM for optics. We were not bringing the BAS for optics, and many others. We did not sit down with the independents and came up with a working agreement just for optics. We were doing that purposely. Number one is to ensure Kenya Kwanza is able to deliver a speaker. That's number one, because his numbers matter. It's about voting with the majority of the members of parliament, and we have the numbers. Secondly, because of our very, very extensive legislative agenda, we also want, number one, a speaker who can be able to understand where you are coming from, and number two, numbers which can be able to sail through and in the bills in parliament. So all these things are geared towards ensuring that the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, where we said we are going to bring the Hustlers Fund, where we said we're going to bring a subsidized fertilizer, where we said we are going to create employment for those young people in Gatanga. That's where we are geared to, and therefore we have not at the back of our mind that the numbers we have, irrespective of what the Supreme Court today will say.
Let me get, Honorable Mbui's.
Yes, you know, when you listen to the Honorable Muriu, it's like he's holding brief for my party leader. He's mentioned Kalonzo more than he has mentioned Rigathi here, and really, I want to advise him. Can you keep here on your lane? We stay on ours. But I understand, because if you are talking of people of substance, we have Marende, we have Kalonzo, we have many people in Azimio. And when you look on the other side, the number of people that can be able to go and lead that house from your side is probably that's where the problem is. That's why you have to keep mentioning our people. And I'm surprised when you said that we want new faces, and he calls the former leader of minority of the Senate a new face. Maybe if you hadn't been watching Citizen, he's always been around and holding that senior position in Senate. Now, on the issue of numbers, you've mentioned the issue of numbers. You have been told here that the numbers are clearly in the favor of Azimio. I don't know. Allow me to just say that this last election was one of the most expensive elections we've ever held, because there was so much voter bribery, and it started a while back. Voter bribery in churches, voter bribery for the general public, and I hope that now this voter bribery is not going to our leaders, because that's the only way that a leader from Kenya Kwanza can become the Speaker of the House. That is the only way. But then you will also be hurting Senate if that happens, because suddenly in Senate the numbers will be balanced. So now it will be a tie. So there will be no tiebreaker. So I don't know how it will happen if this person moves out and then goes to vie for the Speaker of National Assembly. But that also I can also advise my good friend Senator Moses Wetangula that suddenly Ford Kenya will not have a senator in Kenya, and he's been the only senator the last 2 terms. So Ford Kenya as a party needs to also grow. So he needs to remain there and support his party. But finally, on the issue of because we've said that we have a credible candidate, I want to just remind Kenyans that in 2007, when we had that very heavily disputed general election, where we believe Raila won, and the House was, the numbers were in favor of ODM. ODM had the numbers in the House. And when they did the election of Speaker Marende, you will notice that the first order of business was, I think it was members of parliament to be sworn in. During that period, the members the Speaker was, I think, elected, then they would oversee the swearing in. Yes. And now it's the other way around. But at that time, if you remember, the Honorable Ababu Namwamba refused, because his name comes very early due to alphabetical order. He refused completely to swear allegiance to the president, and he kept saying that his president was Raila Amolo Odinga. If you notice, when Marende was elected speaker, he put his foot down. He was ODM, Raila was his leader, but he said, no, I have to stop being partisan. This country must heal. We must move forward, and we must work as a parliament. And in fact, forced members of ODM to now swear the oath as prescribed by law. So I think this is a very fair person. I would urge that Kenya Kwanza, because when it comes to elections of the speaker, not only are we going to vote with our coalitions, but also with our conscience. I would urge that they elect a person that is able to drive the country forward. This again is a very disputed election, and I will tell you, both houses are hanging. Because a difference of 1 or 2 members means that every single vote will require every member in the House. Right. And let me tell you, Honorable Murio, there is nothing difficult. We've tried in the last 2 parliaments, even to get 2/3 was always impossible. It was almost always impossible. And in fact, most times, even to get the actual number, which is 233 members in the House, was actually a virtual impossibility. So for us to have a House that is hung to a difference of 1, 2, 3 members, that's a very difficult House. That requires a very seasoned leader. And I would imagine that Marende would be non-partisan and would help us be able to move forward. You've seen the last 2 parliaments, the 11th and the 12th parliament, under the leadership of your new latest catch, the JB Muturi. You've seen the fights that have been there, physical fights in Parliament. I mean, it was like a war zone in Parliament for the last 10 years. We want a leader that can ensure that doesn't happen. And I want to say that I think Marende, and he's known for Solomonic wisdom, I think he fits that bill.
All right, that remains to be seen. But I think regardless of how the Supreme Court ruling goes today, or who is voted as the Speaker of the National Assembly, what will be critical is how the opposition operates. because there will be an opposition. We haven't really had a defined opposition since, 2018 in this country? And what does that mean generally in terms of how Parliament will carry out its business? Fred, let me give that to you.
Thank you, Vicky. I think I agree with you, but even though we really don't have provisions for opposition as such, but in the National Assembly and maybe the Senate, we have got the minority leadership. And we expect that those roles, they'll play them as per the requirement of law. However, it will be very interesting to observe that the numbers as they are, they're more or less the same. It is very close. And you see, when members of Parliament take decisions,
but of course, after the announcement of the Supreme Court verdict, so we'll expect it will be expecting that they actually stick to their promise that they will actually be maintaining peace. And of course, that has been the rally call from various leaders from this particular region, and of course, opinion shapers too. Each and every person, each and every leader who's actually spoken to, calling on the locals to actually maintain peace before, during, and of course, after the announcement by the committee heads that of course we will be watching keenly just to get to see if indeed of course that rallying call will be adhered to,
because Kenyans have the risk of losing on the national agenda when they have a partisan house that is not focused on solving the issues.
Now, announcement has actually been done, regardless of the outcome, of course everything shall remain calm and peaceful. However, we have a number of locals here who will actually be giving us what
that we'll have to put the other into check.
How
that
we
faction,
are going to
we know that faction, which one it is by the end of today. But I strongly believe that because Azimio la Umoja One Kenya, legally speaking today, already has a majority in Parliament, particularly in the National Assembly. We do believe that they will be controlling the numbers in the National Assembly.
Kwamba watu wamekaa kwa amani sana na watu wanaendelea na shughuli yao ya kawaida. Wewe kama mkazi wa Kondele, naomba tu uniambie wito wako kwa wakazi wa eneo hili, kwa sababu tunajua hapa ndipo iwapo mambo hayaendi sawa. Hapa Kisumu ndio tunaonanga mambo inaanza kuchacha. Tunaomba wito wako kwa wakazi wa eneo hili.
Wito wangu mimi kama mkazi wa Kisumu, tuko na amani, na hata ukiangalia unazaona tuko na amani, na kila tunatarajia hapa watu wengi wako na imani na mahakama. Wanajua vizuri mahakama watatoa maamuzi sawa kulingana na sheria yetu ya Kenya. Ndio maana unaona kwa sasa watu wako na amani, watu wanafanya vitu zao polepole na hakuna vurugu yoyote hapa Kisumu. Tuko na amani.
Vizuri sana Morris. Kwa wale ambao wameogopa na wako makwao na wale ambao pengine wanafikiria kwamba kunaweza kuwa na vurumai, wewe kama mkazi wa Kondele unawaambia nini?
Mimi nawaambia tukue na imani na mahakama zetu, tujue ile matokeo maamuzi ya watatoa leo, watatoa kulingana na sheria na kulingana na evidence walipewa. Sasa sisi kama wakazi wa Kisumu na kwa Kenya jumla, tukae na amani na tungoje hiyo matokeo. Tunajua itakuwa sawa.
Ni muhimu kujua kwamba kuna washindi na washindwa katika mchuano wote. Okay. Vizuri sana Morris. Victor, of course, a very important message from one of the locals here that they have trust in the judiciary, and no doubt they believe that indeed at the end of the day, judiciary will be making a very informed decision based on the fact that was actually adduced in the court of law, in the Supreme Court. So we'll have another local here who will actually give us exactly what he feels about today's ruling.
Nzuri.
Nataka uonekane vizuri sana, naomba utoe kofia.
Nzuri sana.
Naomba uniambie unaitwa nani?
Mimi naitwa Peter Simio. Mimi ni mkaaji wa Kisumu hapa Kondele. Ni mtu wa pikipiki hapa, tunakuwa tutatarajia hapa mambo ya Supreme Court. But tunatarajia na mambo ya Supreme Court ikutole mambo ya nini? Ikuelezee as a court ifanye nini, ikuamlie. Kwa sisi hapa Kondele ni wakaaji, tumejua mambo ya vile Kondele nakaa. Tunatarajia tu mambo ya koti yenye itaamua tu ndio sisi tutaenda nayo. Sisi mambo ya vita, mambo nini, Kondele saa hii imetulia. Tunatarajia amani na tunatakia amani ifanye nini, iendelee tu hivi. As wakaaji wa Kondele tuko tu hivyo.
Viongozi wengi wa eneo hili, tukianza na governor, tukianza na MCA, wengi sana wamehimiza wakaazi wa eneo hili watulie kabla na hata baada ya uamuzi wa koti. Wewe kama mkazi wa eneo hili unaona kwamba wakazi wa eneo hili watafuatilia mashauri ya viongozi wao?
Uamuzi wa uongozi wa hapa, sisi tunatakia tu haki na tunataka tu koti ifanye nini? Iangalia haki ya watu. Sio waangalie vikazi wa watu, lakini sisi tunatarajia tuone haki yetu. Tulitoka kupiga kura na tunatarajia kuona haki yetu vile nafaa.
Asante sana Simiu. Simiu, of course, one of the boda riders here in Kondele, of course, just telling locals that even as we await for the Supreme Court ruling, that indeed we must maintain peace and order and, of course, abide by the law. A very critical message, of course, Victor, that has actually been passed over and over again. However, Victor, I also just want to briefly tell you that one key issue that Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o has actually insisted over the years has been the fact that even when people are actually demonstrating, they must ensure that they keep off the CBD. He says that destruction of property, injuring of people, and of course any other untoward behavior works towards harming the very economy of this region. And of course he's not of that opinion, and he's repeatedly called on the locals to actually maintain peace. And even if they want to demonstrate for whatever reason, it must be done within the confines of the law. Just after, of course, the announcement of Deputy President William Ruto as the president-elect, there were a number of pockets of demonstrations here in Kondele that had actually tried to access the CBD, and of course the groups were quickly neutralized by security agents. And we're not saying that that is going to happen today. However, we are just painting a picture of exactly if someone is actually sitting at home and thinking that probably this is going to burst up if things are not announced in a manner that actually pleases the people of Kisumu County. That is not the case, because many of them have actually come out and insisted that we must abide by the law and must keep peace during and after we are done. Of course, I take you back to Victor.
Last week, the U.S. Ambassador, Meg Whitman, was in Kisumu and held a meeting with Governor Anyang' Nyong'o and security agencies there in Kisumu. And there was a travel advisory which was issued against people traveling to Kisumu and even U.S. citizens working in Kisumu. How do you think, and how did this message sink down with the residents there and even the government?
The travel advisories that were actually issued back. The governor and of course leaders from this region have actually consistently lashed out at those travel advisories. However, they have maintained that there's need for actually to ensure that peace is maintained in this region. So that is pretty very much in order. However, they say that this remains a very peaceful region, and it must be looked in terms of being a peaceful region and not looked in the precincts of course, what the travel advisories have actually been put out there by the U.S. government and other European nations.
Simon Ashola, thank you so much from Kisumu. Please just stand by just in case of anything, and kindly let us know what will happen from the lakeside of Kisumu. All right. Ben Troy, before I hand it over to you, I think...
Victor, and I'll begin exactly where Victor and Achola were having a conversation in terms of the travel advisory. And gentlemen, I would like you to dig into this, because it's not the first time that we are having these advisories. And the good thing is that as Kenyans, we've always maintained peace during, not always actually, talking about the last two election cycles, this and the last one, we were largely peaceful. And something that always comes up when you talk about Kenya and anything big from Kenya is that if Kenya sneezes, the whole region gets that cold. And I remember, Wakili, you talked about how US had even mentioned Kenya when you talk about the electoral process. what precedent or the jurisprudence that we have in Kenya, in our country, what can you say in relations to the decisions that we make that not only affect us, affect the region, and maybe a good example or whatever example to the rest of the world?
Thank you, Pentry. That's a very good question because Kenya is a big brother, as a matter of speaking, in the region, and by region we mean Africa, and sometimes to the world, because what happens here is really of keen interest for the Western countries because, one, they have a lot of interests around here. The U.S. has the embassy. The U.S. embassy is it should be the largest in Africa. They have a lot of contingent around the logistical issues they deal around the region. It's coordinated from Nairobi. So if Nairobi is catching a cold, then the U.S.'s interests and the region will be affected. Same to the Western world. That is one. Secondly, the other East African community, Kenya, has almost one of the largest, as the largest economy, which almost combines the rest of the economies, except now that we have brought DRC now, that is going to change. So the region depends on Kenya a lot, especially as a gateway for goods and services. I was reading the newspaper yesterday and I saw the business, if I'm not so wrong, the Business Daily saying now business will resume once the decision is given. Mm-hmm. I'm like, why did it stop in the first place? Because they were not voting. They were not voting. Somebody on a container, carrying a container to DRC or to Juba, where should he stop his business? So there's the sense in which even business in the other places is really affected when we are in election, especially the 2007-2008 election. Uganda was really affected. Mm-hmm. And any small thing, I've been in Uganda at some point when Kenya has issues, and it's actually affected more than Kenya. So that means that it's something which they have to hold with bated breath, that, let's hope it goes well so that we continue with our business. Mm-hmm. So that aspect is what it is that we are looking at. The U.S. is a Kenyan friend, and it's important that whatever affects them affects us. So when they see something affect them and they don't have the courage to walk through it the way we have, courtesy of our constitution, I think that is something commendable. Remember, their constitution is very old. Ours is a bit new. It's 2010. And we had some safeguards which actually ensure that we act robustly to some of the things which affect us as a people. Mm-hmm. And it was given birth to after a serious crisis, so we do not need to go back there. As Kenyans, we have to see it through. Mm-hmm. Because in a sense, if anything happens in Kenya, it affects these other people. Mm-hmm. So we need to work as the elder brother. When your elder brother whom you depend on seriously is affected, so your head is not clear. Mm-hmm. So we need, as Kenyans, first to do the right thing, then set up precedent. You see, after us annulling the election in 2017, mm-hmm. Malawi, our good friends to the south, also had the courage to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. So that means we are setting precedent. There was a silent communication from the East African community, people saying, begging Kenyans that please do a fair and verifiable election because we are also looking at you, so that we can also be able to task our people to do the same. Mm-hmm. Because there's a way, if we do it right, the other people will be behooved to also do it right. Mm-hmm. So that is I think something we need to look at.
Yes, and I would also want to pick your mind, Wambui Shadrach, as well on that, because at the end of the day, you are officers of the court as well. What precedent does that our decisions set? Because in 2017, the world was watching, and after that historic decision, Kenyans, even the countries that were not watching, were like, we need to watch how Kenya conducts itself. And as Gesori has talked about, is that even Malawi, and not only that, Kenya's example, the bold decision by the Apex Court, is being watched keenly, not only by our East African brothers, but by the rest of the world.
Well, Ben, to be very fair to ourselves, we have always proved to be a first amongst equals. And this, in a sense, should be, this is a conclusion you should arrive at when you reflect on the history the governance of this country. Now, remember, if you look at our neighbors, we are probably one of the countries that basks in a lot of glory as far as the respect for the rule of law is concerned. If you visit just our neighbors here, the Ugandans, they have been a subject of so many coups. And in any event, if you're to look at even the current presidency of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, he actually assumed these reins of power after a coup was conducted, and then subsequently there has been, lip gloss service on their democracy. There has been some intimation that they actually participate in democratic elections. Well, some people might have a different thought on that as a conclusion. And again, if you go back to our neighbors here in Tanzania, what the Chebukati says is, the final declaration is not up for challenge in any court. In any event,
our brothers in
Tanzania. Our brothers in Tanzania, the Chebukati, once the Chebukati says something, it is a done deal. You cannot question that before any court of law. It's cast in stone. So really, when you look at us, we have proved, and this is after the independence. Since we got our independence through blood and sweat, we have ensured that we respect our constitutional democracy. In any event, the little attempts that have been there to have a coup probably has been through, the infidelity when it comes to the implementation of our laws, so that we have had regimes that have ascended to power, but through constitutional means, during by use of processes that are not as the ones that have been anticipated in our constitution. So when you want to look at Kenya becomes unique when it is compared to her neighbors. Many countries in this continent have been a subject of so many coups. People who have refused to yield power, people who have always participated in violence and war. Go to Gabon, go to Congo, DRC, Congo. We have so many examples. Africa is just with replete of examples. So that when you want to look at Kenya, you want to look at Kenya from an American point of view. Because our constitution, it's even one constitution that has been applauded. It has received so many accolades, even from our neighbors in America. It has received so many accolades from our friends in India and even in South Africa. So that when you cannot compare us with the likes of Uganda, you cannot compare us with the likes of Gabon, DRC. No. When you want to compare Kenya, you must compare Kenya with its equivalent, which is the United States of America, where there is some respect of the law and the constitution. And that is why probably this must explain the kind of attention we've been receiving. I've been receiving some interviews from media stations in South Africa. They are keen on establishing what is happening in Kenya. Mm-hmm. Remember, even the environment we've created for ourselves, because of our respect to the rule of law, it is what has attracted so many investors into this country. So many people actually flourish in their countries. They flourish in their businesses because of the peace and tranquility that we enjoy as a country or as a people. That is why we have so many South Africans investing in Kenya. We have so many Chinese coming to invest in Kenya. We have so many people from Japan investing in Kenya. We have Americans who are investing in Kenya. And that is why they're even, scaring some of their people. You should not be in Kondele, you should not be in Kisumu, you should not be... Because of, they know too well.
Because of their interest as well.
Yes, they know too well that they have invested so much in this country. Mm-hmm. And that is why what we do, our business is part of their businesses. Mm-hmm. And as you well put it, when we sneeze, they all get a cold. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I'll throw this on the other side. I will be coming to you, Wakili, on the Kenyan foreign policy, bearing in mind that, or judging by what has transpired in the last couple of years, just shows how strong our foreign policy is. I'm saying this because looking at the organizations that we've been able to head, IGAD, AU, East Africa Community, and also the non-permanent seat at the UN Security Council, just underscores how strong our foreign policy is, and all eyes are on this judgment, bearing in mind that we even have judges, retired judges from other countries who are just seated there and watching, and of course they're going to write a report on how they have seen how the whole exercise has been. And as Kenyans, we also have another chance to cement ourselves in the annals of history in regards to how we conduct ourselves in this, not only in the judgment, but post-judgment. Maina.
Oh, yes. The significance of Kenya to the global community can never be enough because in the colonial times we were said to be the gateway of the continent and East African region. Indeed, if you look at the various unprecedented verdict that we have made in the Supreme Court for the last 3 presidential elections, is actually a testament of what have actually been adopted by other democracies in Africa. And indeed, I've seen international media houses from advanced democracy complementing this particular electoral process in our country. I saw last night I was reading an article from the New York Times. I saw Washington Post also writing an article in regards to the whole process. And that underpins the interest that these people have seen in our electoral process. That actually shows that our democracy has really grown. I saw them actually comparing the insurrection of 2020 on the Capitol in the U.S. Capitol, where there was the conservatives trying to dispute the elections through the unorthodox means. And they were comparing the experience then with how Kenya is handling its electoral outcomes. That is in 2017 and also 2022. That is the kind of maturity that Kenya has come into. And I must say that our constitution has really helped us in actually getting this global respect and also the regional respect from our peers in the region. And that is the kind of direction we should take as a country. Even in terms of the economy, we need to take the direction that our democracy has taken, where we have diversity in terms of the products that come from our country, and also how we govern our commercial sector, so that vibrancy can be realized and we can be able to have the strength that comes with the vibrancy of the economy. Where we are heading to, my brother Troy, is that there might be a unification of the East African region in some years to come. In fact, the drafting of the constitution of the East African Federation is underway. I think it was supposed to be out by 2023. So if as a country we get it right, how we govern ourselves and how we conduct our commercial sector, then it means even when we unify as a region, we are going to be having an upper hand in that unification in regards to offering leadership at the governance level and also at the economic level. And that's where we should head as a country. The Kenyan foreign policy is as vibrant. Remember, we have a concrete foreign policy that is documented. I think it is one of its kind in the African continent. And I think even as the next president comes, we can only improve on that foreign policy or make it even better, so that as a country we can have a country that is respected at the global level in terms of offering direction from the sectors of security, peace, and also the economic level. Because as of now, we are seen to be a regional superpower, but continentally and globally, we are still identified as a developing nation. How do we move from that status of a developing nation to a continental superpower and a global partner with the developing nation? It's by having a vibrant economy. And a vibrant economy comes with building an inclusive economy, irrespective of the strength of the enterprises that we might be holding as individual population in this country.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Maina Karobia, for your time and your insight. We have been here with you since we began this broadcast 7 minutes to 7, and of course that is quite impressive. Thank you so much for your insight. That has been Maina Karobia, who is a governance and leadership expert, and has been actually assisting us in putting things into perspective as we wait the big judgment. We are just an hour shy of that judgment, and the Apex Court did send earlier this morning, notice on that, and said that at exactly noon is when they will be giving us that judgment. And now we have new energy, new strength, and we are also trying to get that gender parity. And we are now joined by Regina Manyara. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Troy. Indeed, you have been holding forth all the way from the crack of dawn, and we're here to support you. Remember, all eyes are focused on the Apex Court as well. Put 1 hour to go. We'll know which direction the country is going to be taking in terms of matters of leadership and, governance, so to speak. And it's definitely going to have a ripple effect in as far as Kenya moves forward, matters business as well as our international relations. And I like what our guest, the political analyst, this is Maina Karobia, said, that in the next few years we are likely to see a unification of the East African community, as it were, and Kenya needs to cement its place as the center of it all in as far as matters of politics are concerned. Just to remind you that we welcome your feedback. You can get us on Twitter on KBC Channel 1. Now, as all eyes are focused on the Supreme Court and its decision that it's yet to be made in the next 1 hour, let's take you down to Dagoretti, where our reporter Beatrice Getonye is covering, the CBC classroom, so to speak, with Cabinet Secretary there, Professor George Magoha. Good morning, Gatonye. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Regina Manyara and Ben Troy in studio. I'm coming to you live from Dagoretti High School, where Professor George Magoha